Alice is certainly one of the Nikkes of all time. She is infamously known for having a high investment, high damage potential, and for some reason one of the most popular targets as a bootleg version in knockoff mobile games. Behind that innocent face hides a deadly secret. Despite looking cheerful and clueless, Alice is actually one of the most monstrous DPS machines in the game, able to outperform even the most meta Pilgrims when the situation and build is just right. In this Nikke character guide and analysis, I'm going to be going over who she is, what to look for in terms of build and gearing, and how to use Alice and become an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. My name is Psyche, and let's begin with the video. I'm sure you've seen the rankings and tier lists by now, and you might have been wondering, how is Alice up there so highly? I doubted that too, as I got my first copy, and was still quite confused as I haven't unlocked overload gear at the time, and she was doing peanut numbers. However, after having mine built up and catching up on some information about advanced game mechanics, I then understood what the definition of a cheat code looks like in this game. Now, a drawback of Alice is that her full potential only gets unlocked with a high amount of investment. So if you only started playing, you may want to hold off before dumping your skill modules into her talents. I'll go through what you'll need for a good build, so feel free to stick around and decide if you're ready. For a bit of an overview, Alice is a main DPS sniper user with a pierce mechanic, making her exceptional in boss killing. AoE though, not so much, making her another one of those units that get better later into the game for raid and challenge content. And not so strong for campaign levels. Something different about how she works is that she's going to need a lot more investments than your typical unit in order to be good, in terms of skill leveling, overload gear, and a little help from teammates, though I can guarantee it is well worth it. Let's start by going over Alice's kit. Skill 1 activates when entering full burst, where the two units with the highest attack gains additional charge speed and charge damage. Again, just like other characters, be very careful with the wording. The skill works whenever you enter full burst, so it doesn't need to be Alice that bursts in order for it to work. Skill 2 is one of Alice's specialties. She is self-sustainable with a leech ability if her HP is below 80% and gains pierce if it's above it. Generally, you want the pierce effect more, but what's even better is that this passive is always active, so as long as you can keep a healthy total, she will always have pierce. The burst skill seems simple, but this is where the meat of Alice's kit lies. She gains a monstrous ceiling of plus 80% charge speed and a 55% attack up. To really put it into perspective, 80% charge speed is huge. Even overload lines only give a maximum of 6% charge speed, and the Adjutant Cube giving just over 2%. Even when it's maxed out. You can see that most of Alice's kit is pretty selfish in nature, only giving herself most of the buffs. But since she's supposed to be a DPS anyways, it doesn't really matter. Let's go over the skill leveling priorities, and this is the part where you would kiss your resources goodbye, since Alice is gonna need a lot of it. As per usual, I'm gonna be using my criteria for leveling that I've used in my past character guides. Strap in, this is gonna be a fun one. Skill 1 gets high priority, and when I say high, I mean high. If you have the resources on hand, it's optimal to max this one out. And the reason is that in order for Alice to shine, you want a max total of plus 100% charge speed. This means that Alice's shots will be ready instantly as you aim down the sight, and is what's making her very busted. While the 10% from skill 1 is not that much, it's still a complement to that 100% requirement. Skill 2 thankfully gets low priority. The only thing that scales here is the amount of healing she does. Since you want her to stay above 80% HP so that she gains pierce, this really isn't necessary. You either have pierce or you don't. You can't just somehow get more pierce from this. Burst ability gets high priority. Just like skill 1, it's in your best interest to max this one out. That plus 80% charge speed is where the bulk of that requirement will come from. So this will already get you 4 out of 5 the way to that 100% charge speed requirement. This is where it gets interesting. Assuming you max out Alice's skill 1 and burst, you will have a total of around 90% charge speed. You just need a little bit more to get to 100. While you may be tempted to just put a charge speed on your overload lines to reach the goal, there is an easier solution. The best ally for Alice to have is Maxwell, because her skill 1 also gives around 4 to 5% charge speed. If you notice, both their skill 1 complement the two allies with the highest attack, and since they're both sniper users, they complement each other's kits extremely well. She's the Bennett to your Xiangling, the Coup caster to your Koyan Skya, And I ran out of gacha game analogies to give, but essentially, you almost always want to pair the two together. So once again, let's assume you have Alice's skill 1 and burst maxed out, then Maxwell's skill 1 maxed out. This will give you a grand total of plus 96.3% charge speed, so we're right by the finishing line now. Let's pull up the good old tier list that I use for overload lines. While I will put charge speed as needing to get ASAP, if the above conditions are true, you would technically only need one overload line for charge speed, with a minimum value of 3.7% or 4% if you're lazy with math. However, if you don't have fully maxed out skills and are a bit off, you would have to do some calculations on your own to figure out how much you still need to meet the 100% charge speed requirement. If you're absolutely stuck, you can even use the adjutant cube to top off that last little bit you need, albeit the cube only giving a small amount. So let's assume you were able to get a grand total of plus 100% charge speed. Congratulations! You are now one step away from graduating your Alice. I should state that any charge speed buffs beyond 100% will not matter, so please do not try to get more on top of what's required. The other overload line you're looking for is max ammo capacity. You want to squeeze in as many charge shots as you can per Alice burst, and more ammo in each mag allows you to do just that. Another solid stat is attack, quite straightforward. If you want to do more damage, build more attack. Situational stats as always includes elemental damage dealt and charge damage, which is still an improvement, but you can thank the damage formula in this game to know that it's not as good as just attack. Crit rate and damage are admittedly net positives for Alice, but there are way better attributes to focus on, so I would still re-roll it if you can. Hit rate and by elimination, defense are useless, because sniper users already have pinpoint accuracy, so it's not helpful at all. You got a couple options for what cube to pick to stick on. If you happen to be a little short of the 100% charge speed, you can go with the adjutant, except its boost is quite minuscule. If you have the requirement met, you can also go with the Bastion, Resilience, or Wingman if everything else is taken. There's a bit of an interesting gimmick when you play Alice. She's way better off played manual, as you can perform something called motion cancel. It's essentially an animation cancel that allows you to fire your gun faster versus if the game was put on auto. In the game, all characters have two different poses. Either they're in cover or peeking out to shoot. For sniper users specifically, as soon as you let go of the aim button, the character will fire a shot and try to go back into cover. Because there's a slight animation delay between going back into cover and peeking out again, what motion cancel aims to do is to let go of the fire button, then immediately hold it again, so that the character never goes into cover mode. You're basically tapping or left clicking just long enough for them to fire the shot, then holding down the button to ready another one. If you have 100% charge speed, it means that the shot will be ready instantly, but you still have to deal with the animation delay, and the timing for Alice's shots can be a little hard to get used to. If you want to practice it, you can go into your union's shooting gallery. When done optimally, you can spam out shots until Alice has to go into reload, but the more shots you can spam out, the better. Now that you have the gameplay down, where should you be aiming Alice's shots? Unfortunately, this really isn't something you can practice at any time, as it depends on the boss that you're facing. Since Alice excels most in boss encounters, having peers means that the best way for you to maximize damage is by specifically aiming for boss parts, aka the separate health bars that are mounted on a boss, like turrets and missile launchers. What Pierce does is that it does damage to the parts as well as the boss itself, so you basically get to double dip on damage. With the recent release of the TIGA comp, you can also try aiming for the enemy core if they don't have any parts or they're already broken. While in most cases you can't hit two things at once, you can abuse the extra core damage. Now, if you had more practice, you can probably fire shots faster than me. However, they did ban macros a while back, and tapping the screen too fast can flag you in the system. Some people use it to fire faster to get a higher ranking, so they put a stop to that. Just be mindful of this going forward. Okay, so this is again me coming from the post-editing section. So in the majority of the background footage you see here, I actually made a mistake. When Alice is not in burst, what you would do is that you would manually control Alice and just quick fire her shots. This is because Alice is actually one of the units that, despite being a sniper user, actually has decent burst generation. Because I found that if you charged up each shot all the way, this team will have a bit of burst generation problems. So once again, when you're not in burst, just quick fire Alice's shots at something to get the burst gauge back up. Now we arrive at teams, and what I like to do is to group Alice and Maxwell together as the main DPS core. and they're able to be placed into various support cores. When I went over the gearing section, having Maxwell in the same party is a soft requirement, as the two will complement each other insanely well. Assuming you have the two, you can pretty much go with any support core that may give a combination of healing, attack buffs, reload speed buffs, or defensive buffs like shields. With the release of Tiga, I would say the de facto best team would feature Naga and Tia and another type 1 for cooldown reduction. This setup allows you to aim for enemy cores and deal massive damage. It's got every possible buff you would want: shields, cover repair, healing, charge speed, CDR, and other types of damage multipliers. Everything Alice needs in order to excel. Of course, you can never go wrong with the bunny comp. They're widely used and known as the universally good support core that excels in any scenario. If you're up against a boss that deals single target damage, that targets your units with the highest attack, you can also slot in Noise or another Taunter as tech, then going with the usual suspects of a CDR unit and a Type 2 debuffer. Another approach on playing Alice is called the infinite ammo comp, where you slot in Admi and Parvati to boost your reload speed, and you can basically fire an infinite amount of times until the buffs wear off. However, I don't think this is practical in most bosses, as it forfeits any sort of defense that can protect your units, so I think this is a meme comp that you can try. If you don't have Maxwell, you can at least use Parvati or Admi to boost reload speed, and it would at least increase your damage uptime. Alice is an amazing late game unit that almost completely makes you realize that the mechanics require a lot more planning and proves that this is more than just an idle game. She allows you to dip your toes in advanced team building and requires you to think about how to play her manually to get the most out of this innocent looking rabbit. She undoubtedly gets a 5 out of 5 from me. If you're still relatively new, then I would give her a 4 out of 5. While she performs averagely by default, she's a unit that makes sense how she would be much stronger when given enough resources to shine, and is a unit that I absolutely recommend building when it's suitable to do so. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this overview of Alice. I tend to prioritize the units that make sense from having a guide made, so let me know who you would like me to cover next. I'm personally looking forward to the first anniversary announcement about a week from now, crossing my fingers for a standard SSR selector. Thank you for watching, and as always, have fun with the game.